Monster Hunter has been around for nearly 20 years. It was first released on the PS2 back in March 11, 2004 in Japan. It was soon to be released in North America on September 21st within that same year, and it was eventually released in Europe the next year. The franchise was very niche and wasn't as popular to the public during the 2000s and the early 2010s. Although it was unpopular at that era, throughout the course of those years, Monster Hunter gained a loyal following. And I personally would say that the fan base established a healthy community with many of the past titles. Monster Hunter started to be seen and acknowledged by everyone for their work when Capcom decided to drop their next-gen title called Monster Hunter World. The game was incredibly ambitious at that time when it was released in 2018, and it was hands down one of my personal favorites of that year. Not only this next-gen title gave great quality to the hardcore fans, this game introduced many more new fans to the series on what this has been about, and from there on out, Monster Hunter has been generating many sales, and the total would be about 92 million units sold for this franchise. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, what is the appeal of this Monster Hunter franchise and what made it so popular? To be honest, just coming from me, there are so many great things to say. To start off, I say that the games feature so many cool monsters. There are different types to encounter and they are all unique. Ask any Monster Hunter fan, I'm pretty sure they all have different favorites from each title. The games also offer some sort of adventure aspect to them. Even though the games weren't technically open world, there are places to explore, to scavenge for some items, and you have a sense of what these beautiful biomes are with how you see its ecosystem and other creatures that are associated within it. Along with all of that, of course, is the gameplay loop and how it captures the satisfaction of a player. As a hunter in the game, you take out or capture many of these crazy monsters and you obtain materials from them to get better gear, such as armor pieces and weapons. What's also cool about obtaining new gear from each monster is that your equipment can look so cool to have, which makes all the hunts worth it. The experience gets even better when you could hunt with your friends. The games so far feature up to 4 players in a hunt, and you can endlessly play the game and work on getting these different builds. Monster Hunter always had different playstyles, which is the weapon you wield for your hunter. And this is significant to the title since it gives high replay value to these games. The game can always feel different to you somehow by just changing up a build, since armor pieces give different abilities and weapons can give a different approach to the hunts. There are so many other things to say about the games, especially with modern Monster Hunter titles, but let's move on and talk about Monster Hunter Now. Monster Hunter Now is created by Niantic, which are the same developers who made Pokemon Go. And Capcom is a bit involved with this game since they have a few producers from Monster Hunter who oversee its development. But I'm not entirely sure who are the others in Capcom who helped Niantic create this game. This is Monster Hunter's first exclusive mobile game that is developed entirely for our phones. They do have another Monster Hunter game on the App Store, but that is a port if anything. I want to make a quick correction before we continue on with the video. A few seconds ago I said that Monster Hunter Now was truly the first mobile title for this franchise. It actually wasn't, and it's funny because this is such a whole coincidence. Literally, like last night when I was scrolling through my feed, I saw like another mobile Monster Hunter game that was completely different from Now, and it was called Monster Hunter Explore, which was only available in Canada and Japan, which is why I also never heard of it at all, or it was not even in my mind when I was typing down my script. Seeing all its gameplay from Explore and now playing the latest mobile title, Monster Hunter Now, it seems that a lot of things were inspired and sort of transfer over from Explore to Now. And I found that very, very interesting in terms of its gameplay design. So if anything, I would consider MHNow the first true mobile game that has been released worldwide. Let's continue with the video. Thank you. As this truly being Monster Hunter's first mobile game, I was surprisingly impressed. I'm not fond of mobile gaming, and I didn't enjoy Pokemon Go as much when it launched, but as someone who is really into Monster Hunter, MHNow does a really good job capturing the essence of what the traditional mainline titles are and is able to put it in our phones well. The feeling and satisfaction with progressing, hunting, and obtaining new gear is there. Even the combat itself from modern Monster Hunter games is present there. Sure, the combat is stripped off a ton of what it's usually about compared to the traditional Monster Hunter games, but it still manages to present itself the same in a different format. I honestly thought initially that the combat was gone or wouldn't be as engaging since it didn't appear to have the movesets we all know and love from the traditional titles, but they are actually there. You just have to figure out the input, which they don't really tell you, and I will talk about that later. But when I found out that you can do majority of the moves from the previous games, as a fan, I thought that was amazing to see, and it being translated well as a mobile game was surprising to say the least. There are still things to know, to learn, and approach, while there is a skill gap between players who go in blindly with no knowledge and those who are experienced hunters. It's also the fact that the game is fully grindable without relying on the microtransactions that are offered in the store. The only problem with this game so far is that you don't have long play sessions, which is also good since you don't need to feel obligated to play the game wherever you go, but it's a bummer for players like me who want to keep playing and grind it out. Technically you can, but it's a lot of traveling to do, and monsters don't tend to frequently spawn in one whole area, and it takes a lot of time for them to respawn again. To counter this quote-unquote problem is that you probably would have to really be in a populated area, maybe around a city or a well-known park near you. I went to a small town and park around my area, and it was sort of a hotspot for monsters to be at. I was there for about over 30 minutes slaying different monsters, gathering materials at harvesting points, which are like the Pokestops in Monster Hunter now. The game is a lot different from Pokemon Go, and so far there aren't other items to boost spawn rates as of this recording. From my experience and what I can access of this game is that it's really meant to be played when you go out on your daily walks or just be out in general on whatever you are doing. It's an app that's there for you to use whenever, and it's something to take your time with. There's no rush to go through all the content that's offered there, and again, I know that's a problem to some people since they want to see all the monsters, but it's important to keep in mind that this game was designed when you go out for walks. I will talk about certain issues with the item shop near the end of the video, so stay tuned, but I want to continue discussing the pros and cons of the game. I also want to add that regardless of the things that I will highly criticize about, I still think the game is playable and is very friendly to newcomers who are not familiar with the franchise. There are some complexities with this game, but this is much more of a streamlined Monster Hunter experience, so I believe players can quickly get into the feel of this game. I also think this is such a great opportunity that Capcom has created for people to check out one of their most popular IPs in their company. I always wanted some of my other friends and relatives to check out the traditional games, but it really never happened since the games do seem a bit intimidating and it does take time to learn for some. So having Monster Hunter Now creates this opportunity for me to play with anyone, and I'm able to show my love of the series by playing with them on this app if they ever download it. Few people I know within my circle who haven't played Monster Hunter decided to download it, like my younger cousin who's not familiar with the franchise, and she really likes it a lot. So we have been out hunting and she's able to see why I always enjoyed the games and the monsters there. She even told me that she's really interested in playing the modern Monster Hunter titles now. This is why I really do believe that this is a great Monster Hunter game for casuals, and the learning curve is not as steep to the traditional games, but it creates a gateway for others to be into them, which is a win-win overall for everyone. Another thing that stands out for this game is that the game is very social. You could hunt with anyone that is near you once you hit HR6, and when I say you can hunt with anyone, you literally hunt with anyone near you on any sort of quest, whether it is for story hunts as known as the urgent quest, or normal hunts where you see monsters in the wild. Other hunters can even join in quests that they haven't experienced yet. Just the other day, my younger cousin and I were hunting, and she never hunted a Tobi Kadachi before, but she was able to still join my quest that had that particular monster, and I thought that was one of the coolest things the game did, since they don't necessarily gatekeep the monsters when someone hosts the hunt. Also, she was able to keep the materials and craft the armor pieces once the hunt was over, and this whole social factor is pretty cool to do since it doesn't leave anyone out, especially in a big casual game like this that is about being social and being together to slay these monsters. This was definitely the right decision from the developers to do, and I'm just very happy that there is a much more incentive to hunt together than just being on your own. The gameplay also runs well when people are with you on quests, and I would say that the hunts are a bit easier since the monster aggro's one person, while the other can do damage from another angle. I'm not entirely sure how the game scales when it's multiplayer, but it's not as noticeable considering that the average time of hunts is about 30 to 50 seconds if the monster is challenging. The downside of multiplayer in this game is that there isn't online play, so you would have to know some people who play this game in order to help you grind out, or to have fun of course. It's sort of a big issue here in the West, more so in the United States or within my area, since there aren't a lot of people who know what Monster Hunter is or what the app is really about. It's not as known compared to Pokemon here in the States, so I would love it if they integrate online play somehow. Let's talk about difficulty and its gameplay. As mentioned before, I was impressed how there is depth to this mobile game with its combat and how you craft different builds. Initially, when first starting it, the fight seems way too easy and you could just mindlessly tap the screen to win. Once you reach a certain level and encounter higher level monsters, you start to pay attention and see how things are much more on the line. You play more carefully or tactically, do different builds to fight certain monsters. So I do enjoy that aspect itself, since that is how the traditional games are. Of course, the fights aren't as super difficult to do since it is made for our phones and when we are on the go, but I already started to feel the difficulty gap when I did my first encounter with a 3-star monster. Each star raises the difficulty of a monster, so they would have newer movesets. They get much more aggressive and have larger health. This is when builds become way more important, since the time to finish these hunts are 75 seconds. You want to do the best damage possible over time, but personally I would want them to raise the time a bit more so people wouldn't feel pressured, since they can end up making dumb decisions due to them being in a rush. An average hunt in Monster Hunter in traditional games take about 10 to 20 minutes to do, but they usually give about 50 minutes to complete one hunt. I would say that they should either raise the time for a 2 to 3 minute hunt if anything, because I feel like it doesn't reward you for how you approach the monster in combat. There are plenty of times where even though I am on decent gear, I almost be punished for it since the damage per second isn't as good enough for the 75-second timer. I could have wiped these monsters without taking as much damage and playing it a bit more defensively if the time was raised. Regardless, this is a small complaint compared to the other ones I'll talk about soon. Also, I haven't seen every monster or encountered the highest level monster yet, so this discussion of difficulty can change once I reach post-game. But so far, I'm happy that there is difficulty in these hunts. I also want to put out, before we move on from the difficulty discussion, is that there are ways to create the game to be a bit easier by doing these certain builds, like having a whole health boost build where you're able to have more health than usual for these fights. Or another example is having abilities such as Artful Dodge or Divine Blessing. Artful Dodge helps make the window time for perfect dodging much more doable, which helps create your hunter play defensively and do counterattacks much easily, and Divine Blessing allows the hunters to be hit without being damaged a lot. So it's all about being creative with the builds, and this is one of the reasons why I actually enjoy this mobile game, since it does have the creativity you would see in the traditional game. A small note relating to difficulty is that since monsters end up being tougher than usual, and the combat has some hidden tech to figure out, I feel that this game should have a training room just like the other games. I know it's a mobile game and it's not as serious to some, but there are different inputs to learn for each weapon while they have a unique approach to different monsters. Timing especially is the most crucial thing in this game, whether it is hunting the monster on time or its combat such as perfect dodging, when to appropriately use your weapon in a certain scenario, and things of that nature. Having a training room will help a lot for newcomers to be familiar with their weapons, since there is no advanced tutorial to learn the combat. Now, Monster Hunter is known to be a grindy game for your builds, or even just working on one build. The gameplay loop can be tedious sometimes, especially if you are unlucky obtaining certain drops from monsters. I hate to say it, but I already see some big issues since the grind is even more complex for this game than the traditional titles. Now with the traditional games, you are able to repeatedly hunt a monster immediately. Monster Hunter now does not do that at all. There's no way to filter out certain monsters when you go out for a walk. You would have to be lucky as well on what monster you want to spawn along with its material drops. And the difficulty can be tough once you reach certain monsters. Later on in the game, they hit hard, and it's already difficult to build higher level armor sets since they require more rare materials. So the whole system for grinding will annoy some people if they want things right away. Like I mentioned before, it's important to expect that this game will be slow for progression, especially if it's designed for you going out for your daily walks. I know I mentioned that the game is fully grindable without relying on purchases from the shop, but there is a problem with one of the most useful mechanics implemented in this game, which is the marking system. You're able to mark monsters in this game. The paintball item returns to the franchise, but it is a very limited resource to have, since the only way of obtaining it is through leveling up sometimes, not even most of the time, or you purchase it in the shop. Why this is so valuable to have, and the use of this item is that every time you paintball a monster, you would be able to hunt them later throughout the day and can fight them anywhere you want. So an example is that I would paintball some monsters that I can't fight at a certain moment, and I would end up fighting them later once I'm at home. This is a very useful feature since it doesn't miss your opportunities when you're out hunting. And some monsters in this game can be tough, so when you are out, it's sort of difficult to concentrate, at least for me. And you end up throwing away some health, which is another important thing to talk about as well. But back to the paintball system, it's useful since you can mark up tough hunts and be able to deal with them back at home or any place you're comfortable to be at. Paintballs are also very limited on what you mark, since you can mark about 8 monsters, which I honestly feel that's okay, but preferably it should have been a higher cap, especially if you grind a lot for the game to obtain them by leveling or purchasing them in the shop. Also, your Palico is able to automatically mark certain monsters while your phone is locked when Adventure Sync is on. And it's another brilliant mechanic to have, but it is very flawed considering the Palico only has 3 paintballs and it usually marks something immediately and doesn't have the option to mark anything specific. An example would be that it could just mindlessly mark 1-star monsters, which don't give the best material, especially if you progressed a lot already with the game compared to where you could have marked a higher ranked monster so you could obtain better materials. So although you can gather more monsters on your paintball list, it takes away other opportunities you could have had while you are on your little Monster Hunter journey. I spoke with my friend Theo about this, and he said that they should have made an option to craft paintballs, which I agree with him, especially how paintballs were so accessible in past titles. There isn't even an option to purchase it with Zenny, which is the in-game money you could obtain from doing quest hunts and such. I also felt they should have done free daily refills of 3 max at least, just like the Palico paintballs. So as of right now, the paintball system just seems like a waste, or rather a system where they want you to pay real money, which is a shame considering how the game is grindable without the shop, and them forcing you to pay makes players go away from the game. I find it a bit weird that this game wants you to get off the game rather than keep playing it, because you should still be able to play the game on your own terms, and when you have a good player base that is very interested with the mobile game, they would have naturally spent on the shop, especially if there is a valid reason to. Now let's talk about the potions and its healing system. Just like the paintballs, it is another system where it limits itself on obtaining potions. Potions are such a crucial thing in any Monster Hunter game for MHNow, since monsters can pack a punch when reaching higher leveled monsters. Although this issue isn't as big compared to the paintballs, it's still something important involving their systems. To give some credit to the healing system, you do slowly heal over time when you are not in combat, and it also does free daily refills of 5 potions. But let's say there is a special monster to encounter and you are incredibly low on health, where it's a red bar shown for your hunter. The game won't allow you to hunt until you have a certain percentage of health, which is 30%. Basically, when it shows your hunter having a green bar of health. This sort of makes you feel obligated to use your potions immediately so you could get the monster before you leave the area. And again, just like the paintballs, there should have been an alternative way to obtain it, like to craft or buy potions with the money that you grinded from the game. I'm surprised they don't really bother rewarding you more when you level up either, since you can regen health and get daily refills. So why not bother giving some potions when the players level up? There are questionable things to be said about this game, but I believe it's still playable to say the least. But let's move on talking with the microtransactions in the shop. Hello everyone, this is the item section or item shop section of the video. I kind of want to do a live commentary just to show you guys through the item shop and discuss about it live. I think it's just better like this than it being scripted. And surprisingly, for like a live service game, it's not as malicious of what you would probably expect compared to like gacha games and all that. You're not going to seem like you're pouring tons of money into the game. I did purchase one of their passes as well. I just want to let everyone know. And it was their celebration pass. Here, I'll just show it. It's their celebration pass, and this is just temporary. This pass is up to like a month, as you see here, September 18th to October 17th, and each day I get more gems, which I don't really use other than for potions, which I will just talk about later. Your paintball is increased to your paintball list capacity is increased from 8 to 10. They don't even give you paintballs. When I got this pass, I felt I got kind of ripped off. I was like, I got no paintballs for him, but at least I'm getting like gems each day. And then your Palico paintball is increased from 3 to 5, which is actually very useful, especially how your Palico refills every day on the paintballs. It just sucks that you can't command your Palico, or you can't tell your Palico what to paint. There's no like filter. You don't really have control on what the Palico paintball is, and that's the most unfortunate thing of the game. I hope they actually do change that. And the rest, and also this is the starter pack. The starter pack is about $7. It gives 3 paintballs, 2 wander droplets. For those who don't know what a droplet is in the game, it's the it pretty much increases your radius, as you see here. Hopefully, did I actually use one? I don't think so. It increases your radius in the game for 15 minutes. Oh, increases your the access range by 50% for 15 minutes, which is actually really good, because that's pretty much your whole hunt or like your whole walk, because these fights end pretty quickly. And then the Wander Orb is like just the better version of the Wander Droplet, which is like 30 minutes. And I feel like these are useful if you're in a hot spot, but typically when it comes to these items, you don't really use them. Just walk, man. Get your exercise. And see, and this is what I mean, where like this is not as malicious as what you would think. The only thing that sucks is that you can't craft any potions or paintballs. They are just hard to obtain overall, and that's such an unfortunate thing with the game, because it just lessens the playtime for people, and like Niantic, Capcom, just let people play the game. I don't understand why they want to cut your playtime short. And yeah, let's just say you're out of potions, your free potions, and you don't want to use the actual potions, because the actual potions are limited too, because the only way to get the potions is to buy them off the store, or obviously like get them as a reward somehow, or a gift. Recently they just did like a 3 million pre-registration reward for players who got into the game on its launch week, so they gave like free items and all that. But other than that, let's say without those rewards, the only way to access them or get them, like the regular potions, is to buy them with gems. And the thing about it is, I feel like, again, it's just an unnecessary mechanic to have, and I get it, they're trying to bank off our wallets somehow, some way. But I feel like there are so many other creative ways to persuade people to buy your certain things from the shop. Like, for example, like as what I showed in the past, like it's not as drastic, and in the end of the day, there isn't no pay to win at all with a lot of these things. It's more so pay to progress, right? Like if you want to progress much faster, because in the end of the day, it's really all about skill on what you do with your character. It's really up to you how you react, how you fight the monsters. And once you hit like the 4 to 5 star monsters, I don't know if it's like this for everyone, that's when the difficulty really kicks in. That's when they get much more aggressive. They take a lot more swings at you. Sometimes they're a bit unpredictable. They'll catch you off guard. They'll also like hit you like 3 shots, 2 shots, maybe a 1 shot. I am currently under leveled with my build, and it's one of the most unfortunate things, because my defense is on 277, and you would think that would be high, because I have been grinding nonstop since launch. I always take my time to play the game and you know, go out for walks. I probably go out maybe two times a day, 3 times a day, just to get the grind in, because it's really fun. I really do enjoy playing this game. So I do have like a crit build happening, and I know if I want to make fights easier, I should grind out for like different armor sets that have different abilities, such as like health boost and divine blessing. Those are probably the go-to right now as of this recording. We're on 9/21/2023, September 21st. So for those are watching in the future. You never know. And the recommended like defense level or defense stat to have according to the game, it says like you have to be about around 290 to like 320 for the 4 and 5 star, and I'm not even close to that. And you could definitely tell when you experience it, because once you get hit, you get like one-shotted. I personally get one-shotted all the time. So I do my best to play a bit defensively or like dodge a lot. But I like the difficulty of this. I just hate how the game capitalizes on your or takes advantage of your time and your progression. And that's what's really annoying about this, because it's like, don't you want your players to play more of the game, you know? And yes, the Zenny is optional to buy with gems, and you could have permanent expansions, but to be honest, these are items you're not really gonna use, because you're always earning Zenny somehow, some way, by leveling up maybe, or doing your quests or your rewards. But yeah, other than that, there's really not much to look into the store. So it's really good that they all rely on your skill and your gameplay, and you just at least playing the game a bit daily here and there. But I would love them to just cater to both players, like players who want to play long and players who don't necessarily have the time, you know, like the casuals and the long-term players. It's kind of weird how the item shop is. Like, again, I know it's like these are so many unnecessary things to put on sale, where you could do a whole like battle pass system on here. Not make it reliant, obviously. Don't make it reliant on the player to like progress or whatever, but it's like there's just no cosmetics, just nothing as interesting in the shop for anyone to buy. And I feel like if they offer cosmetics or like a bundle that's actually worth the price for this game, I think they could make some money out of that, especially for a live service game. It's weird how the item shop currently is, and I think right now the game is a bit bare bones in terms of the like content and even again with the item shop. So but I do like it's not reliant on your money. You don't need to dump money. You just have to play this game casually. Maybe you have to play a bit daily if you want to progress as much as you can. It just sucks that it excludes a lot of players who actually enjoy the game and want to play long term. I feel like that defeats the purpose of gaming on the go and everything, but you know, it is what it is. So item shop, it's not as bad, and I hope it doesn't get worse from here on out. If anything, I hope the items continue to be completely optional, and also they add more spice to the item shop, like maybe add like better reasons to make people buy your passes. Like, oh, if you buy this pass, you get more paintballs, like you get more money somehow, you get more gems. Obviously they're doing that with the current pass that I have, but I think if they add like cosmetics, like layered armor for your hunter, if you don't know what layered armor is, for those who are not familiar with Monster Hunter, layered armor is just purely cosmetics in the full game, in the traditional games, and you could just wear them you could just wear them on top of like your actual gear, and they're just pure cosmetics. And I would love to see that. I know some people may be against that because they're like, oh, games shouldn't be like rely on microtransactions, especially like with Monster Hunter, and that's absolutely true with the traditional games, but this is a live service game. So, you know, that's my 2 cents like into this whole item shop. But yeah, it's not as bad, but at the same time it could have been better somehow, some way. To conclude this video, Monster Hunter Now has the potential of being one of the best mobile games for these upcoming years. As a fan of this franchise and is looking forward to playing more of Now, it is a bit concerning how Niantic will treat this game and its content. We already experienced their first weekend, which was the Diablos event, which features frequent spawns of Diablos and rare spawns of Black Diablos. As much as that was cool to see, and them putting a whole new monster and a new set of gear from Black Diablos, the event came in way too early, and it was very difficult for players to attend since we didn't have good enough gear to fight them. Overall, the weekend event felt like a waste of effort and created many missed opportunities for players who were looking forward to it. The event could have been managed so differently, but they decide to not bother making things quite fair. Already within this first month, the game has players like me concerned, and I hope the management, the developers, decide to change how this game is in the future. I still think this is such a solid mobile game to play by yourself and with others. The content when it launched is initially fun compared to how Pokemon Go was treated. All Niantic has to do is keep the momentum and create satisfaction for the community. Monster Hunter is really those ideal games that work in this structure, so I hope in the future, whatever they are planning, they continue to strive to be the best in this space. Thank you everyone. This is my Monster Hunter Now video. Remember, drop a like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Thank you for all the support in the past videos, and I'm out. Peace.